The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And TGIF and really big T. Thank heavens. We don't. Welcome to Spindle City or Bizarroville, whatever you want to call it. And the beat goes on. And anybody who said that we could do business with this mayor without it being diverted by everything that surrounds him, the typhoons, tsunamis, and everything else that surrounds him. And it didn't take him long to retaliate. Did not take him long to retaliate.
Not even 24 hours.
Not even 24 hours. He took Coogan off, but then I guess he got a lot of heat on local radio, and he tried to spin it a little bit and said that they're not off the committee. You just can't vote, which that means you're not on the committee. Because if you can't vote, you might as well just be you're a spectator.
That's it.
So, you know, and look, we know it's political retaliation, and I'm reading this Joe Good article. He said he wanted to diversify the building committee, and he appointed school committee member and Fall River firefighter Joshua Hetzler. Well, you know, why don't you just come out and say you want to appoint a political ally? Don't try to. You need somebody from public safety with experience in public safety. What do you need somebody with experience in public safety for on a school building? You got an architect. You got construction companies that have codes, electrical codes, building codes, CMRs. And CJ, correct me if I'm wrong, did we not discuss the safety of that school during every debate about the debt override?
Yes, we did.
They had the police chief there, the fire chief there. We've never, ever appointed anybody to a committee about a building,
right,
because they're from public safety. Public safety has to be given. We talked about exits and entrances and everything. You know, this is, don't try to spin this. You want to appoint them because you feel he's an ally and you want to get rid of your enemies. Have at least the courage to say that. All he ever does is manipulate fact. He wants to have someone from public safety. Why? Fire the architect. You're going to have a clerk of the works. You always do. Somebody in charge of the building. You have electrical codes, sprinkler codes, life safety codes. You've got all kinds of codes that have to be adhered to. And you got people making gigantic money and construction companies with experts to ensure that they comply. There's no necessity. That's not a reason to put somebody on. That's just a justification. That's all it is. It's not a reason. And I got nothing against Hetzler. Fact is that I'm looking forward to when he pulls papers to run and they try to prevent him from running, because I think it's his constitutional right as a citizen to hold office. There are already provisions about what pay you take, but that's, to me, to completely eliminate a sector of the population from holding office is totally unfair.
But they're not eliminating a whole sector, because guess what? There is nothing that says he can't run for office. It just says he can't hold two positions. He can leave his position as a firefighter.
Well, but they are, because what they've done is they've prevented someone with a city job from holding public office. That's a catch-22. So you are totally. I don't even want to get off this tangent, but I'll quickly touch. So what that bunch of pinheads, except for Dan Robillard,
yep,
that created this charter, couldn't see that's discriminatory. So what you're telling somebody is, if you're totally invested in this community and you want to become a representative of the people in the city council or in the school committee because you really feel you want to do something for your city, and you got a job, a full-time job that pays your bills, you have to give up that job for a $12,000 job. That's a penalty for you being involved in your community.
I understand.
That is absolute BS. It is crap. And he or anybody else who can legally run for office, if they want to represent the people, if they want to give up their time for chump change, good for them. That's crap. This charter is a disaster. But let's get back to Jason and this whole thing, because look, he booted him. Now you got the city council coming up with they want to revote. And I understand this section. I see you got section 3.8. They want to do it again. I personally think that they should be looking at section 8.8. which clearly states that if there's a conflict, that between two outcomes, the outcome with the most I got the wrong briefcase, but
61%,
or 61.45.
something like that.
Yeah, it was almost 61.5% of the people said they did not want him as mayor. To be elected by 35 is not only unconstitutional, because it says we are the government, and they are our representatives. We didn't, the majority of people in Fall River, 35% cannot outvote 61.5%. I'm sorry, it just doesn't happen.
Unless you're in Fall River.
Unless you're in Fall River and you have this disastrous charter. They should be looking at that 8.8, and they should take this to court. As a matter of fact, I called the ACLU this morning to set up a meeting, because I'm seriously contemplating on getting a bunch of people together who've called me already to file suit about the outcome. I think it flies in the face of the Constitution. And I don't want to hear Joe Macy's opinion. I don't want to hear Mike Mioz's opinion. I think the Constitution is clear, and I don't care. If we got a constitutional debate, let the city council take this to the SJC, because they are the only people whose opinion counts. And I'll tell you what, if the Supreme Judicial Court of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts tells me, in their interpretation of our Constitution, that 35% wins over 61%, well, I'll have to live with it. I won't like it, but I'll have to basically go out and get rid of every legislator who won't change the law, because that doesn't work in anything. If the Patriots scored 35 points and the other team scored 60, the Patriots don't win. Patriots fans would love that. They win no matter what the score is. That was a travesty. As we said on Wednesday's show, it should have been fixed. And, they could call it a shake-up on a building. Let's face it. Look, I mean, and that's the thing. He really insults everybody's intelligence. All these things happen after they're a reaction to something that happened to him. He was in office for 3 years. He promised to get rid of the purple bags. He gets rid of them just before an election. He gets rid of the fee when he's running for election. Now he wants to talk about holding a line on taxes. He wants to talk everything. If that's the case, we can really move this city forward. What the city council should actually do is let's have an election every 6 months. Because apparently that's the only time anything gets done in Fall River, prior to an election. Fees get eliminated. People pay attention. They always do some political stunt.
Roads get fixed.
Roads get fixed. That's right. Let's have an election every 6 months. These politicians will be doing everything the people want. They will actually, for the first time, begin to do their job again and be representative of the people. Because this is just, it's nuts.
You're asking for a lot.
Well, CJ, I know we've got the letter from Cadime, I guess, huh?
Yes, we do.
And
You got two different copies, whichever one you can read easier.
no, it's go ahead. You can get into this letter because I mean, obviously, look, as I said, and they'll say, well, it's because you don't like. No, that we said on Wednesday, we had a problem with our recall. We knew that was going to be ultimately bite us in the butt. And we were proponents of fixing that. That was the thing, the primary fix in the revamping of the charter, and they didn't do it. And look what's happened. We're the laughing stock of the world. As a matter of fact, on the nightly news, I saw a Republican, I don't know if he was a state rep or a state senator, basically say, I'm paraphrasing, we don't want Rhode Island to be infected by Fall River because we're close to it. And it's like he said that the outcome of this recall was a miscarriage of justice.
Exactly.
The voters were not heard. And he cited the percentages. And he's right. And the only people who don't see this are the Charter Commission and the Jombies.
Yeah, I understand that. But,
So, it is a miscarriage of justice,
Right.
and it's denying the people their fundamental right under the Constitution of this Commonwealth.
I think this whole question in the charter, this whole section of the charter, will become a constitutional issue, because as you remember, the Supreme Court Justice, the Superior Court Justice in our case said that the law was flawed, and because it was flawed, they have to allow Will Flynn.
But not casting any aspersions at politically appointed judges. That judge was also a former city corporation counsel.
That's right.
So you can say he was totally neutral. I really don't believe that. And as you said, CJ, I think the important thing you just articulated was that the judge said this was a flawed law.
Right.
And what that is saying, in case you can't really understand the implication of that statement, was, listen, if you don't want this to happen again, fix it.
Fix it.
And we had an opportunity to fix it, and we did not fix it.
No, instead, Mike Mioza and Chris Bartley decided to copy it word for word, almost word for word, and put it into our charter. They took out the law and put it into our charter, exactly the way it was, but it was already flawed.
Yeah.
And that's why Danny voted against it, because he knew it was flawed.
You're right. And as you said, they put it in word for word, but they also hired a consultant who said he didn't want to go over the charter item by item and redo it, which is what we all voted for.
Right.
Which is what we signed a petition to do when we had a charter. So they acted like politicians, except for Dan Robillard, who opposed virtually everything, and actually filed a minority opinion and voted against the charter as a charter commissioner.
That's right.
So, as I said, kudos to Dan for standing up for his beliefs and standing up for the citizens of Fall River. And all those people who got conned into voting for this charter because he didn't do it, we told you so. We told you so. And do I take any pleasure from saying that?
Yes.
Yes,
You do.
I do. Because, if you couldn't read that charter and see what a disaster it was, obviously it means you didn't read it at all, or you have absolutely no ability to interpret the written word. So, and you believe they're conned, just like the debt override. But look, this city has become, it's crazy. It's just crazy. How can we do business when the news is either somebody gets stabbed on Rockcliffe Street, which, by the way, I think is they should have some kind of a plaque up there. That's the place. I think that's the place that most people got murdered, because many years ago, if you remember the amateur boxer from this area, Kenny Pemberton, who I knew, was killed on that corner with the bar. But this is all we read about: crime, and what's Jazel's next machination.
But crime numbers are down.
No, but yeah, of course they are.
You have to laugh at some of this.
But look, I'm sending out the call. Anybody that is interested in doing this, I think that the CAG, the Citizens Alliance for Accountability in Government, has to take this issue on as citizens. I think the people, the 60%, 61.45% or 60.45% of people whose will is being thrown in the basket because 35% of the people trampled, quashed, mangled, to the extent where Rhode Island legislators are saying, I will not allow this to happen in Rhode Island. We're going to pass a law to make sure you can't do this. The public, the majority rules. This is a democracy. It's a republic. And our city councilors, if you have a special meeting and you object or you try to say that the public has spoken, they should recall you. Because you should not be sitting in that chair after the next election, because this is a national disgrace.
Well, I think that law in Rhode Island is going to be called the Anti-Fall River Act.
Yeah. They've got a lot of bills named after him. Maybe they'll call it the Jazel Correa II bill or something. I don't know.
He'd love that.
But he said, that. He would probably. But the reality is, look, it's got nothing to do with it. If it was any other mayor, we were not happy that Will Flanagan was on the ballot and at the top of the ballot, as you said. And we would have been looking to go to court if he won that election. He didn't. But, this is it. And we've also heard that Joe Camara resigned from that committee.
Right. But that was after.
After, yeah.
And again, I think there was a lot of pressure on him from the public because they all thought he was the fix. They all believed that he ran for office because he wanted to take votes away from the other candidates to give Jazel Correa more votes. And it was even pointed out that his brother got a job, a no-show job, making, what, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year. And, obviously, people felt that Joe Camara owed the mayor something. Now, whether he did or didn't, I can't see. I'm not Joe Camara. I don't know what it is. But appearances, when you've got the appearance of a problem, you've got a problem.
Yeah, because we all know, CJ, that in politics, perception is reality.
Exactly.
And as one of our favorite people to quote said so famously, Goebbels said, if you tell a big enough lie often enough, people will believe it.
That's right.
So, Joseph Goebbels, the propaganda minister for Adolf Hitler, in case you don't know who Goebbels is, But again, look, this is the paper. Correa challenger Coogan in support of Mike Costa. Removed. Mayor calls for shakeup. Why? Isn't it mysterious that shakeups and eliminations of bags always happen before or after something that is imminent? So it didn't take him long to show his true colors. And I don't know, they invoked, praise the Lord, and this is a triumph of good over evil. Even though I truly believe in the separation of church and state, you think God would consider you good when you just summarily remove people like this and people with a commitment to the community? Look at whether you voted for Paul Coogan or not. He ran for the school committee. He's on the school committee. And not only that, that school would not have been built, maybe, without Paul Coogan's effort. We disagreed with the debt override, but he took his time to advocate for a building of a school. He was the point man. And at every debate he went to, he gave up a lot of his time.
And he made it clear to the press yesterday, I believe it was Channel 6, and he says, I worked diligently on getting the money to build this new school. I have been dedicated to this. And he was.
He was, and he because we know, because we were there at every meeting too. So,
and I mean, like you said, we didn't agree with him, but we had a disagreement without being disagreeable.
That's right. Well, we agreed with building a school, but not when we
Right.
had the money to build it and impose it for. That's the issue. When he said, I'm gonna earn your vote, and then you do something like this. This is disgraceful. Paul Coogan, if anybody should sit on that committee, it should be the guy that actually pushed the debt override.
Right.
And then he said he wants to shake it up. But I'm going to tell you, I hear they also appointed Nick Chris, another out-of-towner. Well, people can disagree with me. He wants diversity. I don't believe in diversity.
Which is also a violation of the charter, by the way.
That's right, exactly. Another violation of the charter. But you know something? If Nick Chris, and I know he's very, very involved in education, will say, well, that's because he's very involved. He bankrolled this thing. Well, guess what? He also moved out of the city. And this is a city project being paid for with state dollars and taxpayer dollars, overridden dollars. It's our tax money. And you know something? If we're going to build a school in the city of Fall River, everybody, in my opinion, on that committee should be from the city of Fall River, so they have a child or a relative or someone they know that has to go to that facility so they can hold everybody accountable. You want to build a school, build it in Swansea. You should not be on a committee when you have no real interest in this community. That's not where your children have to go to school. That's why I've always advocated department heads living in the city. I don't believe a police chief should be allowed to live out of the city, because I think that a police chief's wife and family should have to walk the streets that we have to walk. It puts them in better touch with the community. So that's just my opinion, but I think this is an outrage. Paul Coogan, whether you voted for him or not, has to be acknowledged for his involvement in getting this school funded. And to remove him because of political vendetta and then make that we need somebody from public safety. No, you don't. No, you don't. There's never been anybody from public safety appointed because they were from public safety. There's no need for that. We're constructing a brand new building. We have more codes than meets the plumbing codes, electrical codes, life safety codes, contractors with people and blueprints and codes. We talked about safety ad nauseum. You want to say I want to put a more friendly person on the committee? At least have the courage to say it. But again, why are we in this position? The charter.
Yep, the charter.
The charter. Why do we have an out-of-towner sitting on the committee? The charter is not being enforced. And Section 8.8 is not being enforced.
Well, what's very interesting is, and I was thinking about this as you were talking about the fact that we had a debt override. Now, wouldn't it be amazing if we got together enough people to put on the ballot a tax underride?
Underride.
Do a tax underride. Take $95.5 million out of our taxes. That would be the money that they're getting for the school. Take it out of our taxes. Then what are they going to do? They don't understand.
They'll take you off the committee.
Yeah, I'll take it off the committee, which I'm not on anyway, so it doesn't matter. But, the people can do this. The people recalled this mayor. Whether he wants to call this a victory for him or not, he was recalled. By 61% of the people, he was recalled. He's going to have a hell of a time come September, and if he makes it November, to run for mayor. And there's a question of, somebody tried to question him on whether or not he was going to run. He didn't want to make any comments. And I can understand that. And probably Jen Andrews saying, no, we won this, we'll win that too. And, he's got his father walking around with a Jays Career t-shirt saying, this was, an act of God.
Oh, yeah. Well, the reality, look, the reality is, he'll run if he's here. That's the only job he's ever had. He's going to run, and I know his people are saying, that's right, we won, and we're going to win in November. We're going to crush everybody. He's going to be here as long as he wants. And, well, number one, as you said, he really didn't win. We asserted, as we did during our recall, that the top is when he's running. He has no opponents.
Right.
It's just say, do you want him as mayor? He's been booted. Once the majority of people in the city of Fall River boot someone, they should not be able to win re-election with by any means, let alone having a vote total that's nearly only half as much as the people who voted to get him out. That is not representative. It's unconstitutional, and he can say he won all he wanted, but he didn't win. He won on a technicality. That's just like the guy who murdered 28 people in McDonald's many years ago out in California. He got acquitted. He was found not guilty. Killed 28 people. They had everybody else that survived in that McDonald's was a witness, and somebody failed to Mirandize him correctly, and he got off on a technicality. Yep. The reality is Jazel Correa is the mayor on a technicality.
Yeah, true. Before we lose time, because we don't have a lot of time left, I want to read this letter from Shawn Cadime to the City Council President. March 14th, so this was yesterday. Cliff Ponte, City Council President, City of Fall River, 1 Government Center, Fall River, Mass. 02720. And it's actually 22, but that's another thing. RE, recall election and mayor federal indictment, City Charter, Article 3, Section 3-8. Mr. President, during the recent recall election, the voters of Fall River overwhelmingly chose to recall Jazel F. Correa as mayor. He was then later elected on the same ballot to serve as mayor. As a city councilor, I still maintain that Jazel F. Correa II is still unfit and unable to perform the duties of that office. One of the very first actions as mayor was to issue political retribution. The removal of school committee vice chairman Mark Costa and school committee man Paul Coogan from the Durfee Building Committee was nothing more than political retaliation. This substantiates his inability to govern our city fairly, justly, and without malice. There is no telling what recourse will be given to other city employees who may have supported another candidate during the recall election. In addition, we are currently in the middle of a budget cycle. To have an individual in charge of submitting a budget of roughly over $300 million with no guarantees or reassurances that the budget will be compiled without malicious intent or without any impacts that solely benefit his political survival is extremely alarming. We also should not ignore his arrest and arraignment on 13 counts of federal criminal charges that continue to be unresolved and the continued federal investigation of corruption. I am requesting that you immediately call a special meeting of the Fall River City Council to once again exercise the council's right under Home Rule Charter, Article 3, Section 3-8, to take a public vote to determine that the mayor is unable to perform his duties of his office. As prescribed by the Home Rule Charter, if the vote of 7 yeas prevail, the president of the City Council shall immediately assume the role of acting mayor. The role of acting mayor shall continue until such time as the federal criminal charges that have been brought against Jazel F. Correa II have been resolved or concluded, or until the next scheduled city election where the voters of Fall River have the opportunity to exercise their vote for mayor. Regards, Shawn Cadime, City Council.
Well, as you said, I think they should have also put 888 in there, because I think it actually says that this thing was invalid. But, you know, the people have to be heard. There are representatives, there are agents. That is unconstitutional, and it is clearly not what the people want. So if you stay angry, you know, go on CAG's Facebook page or Spindle City. If you're interested in pursuing something, if we can, as I said, I have got a call into the ACLU. I'm attempting to contact some lawyers to see if they would be willing. And if we can't get a lawyer to do it, you know, we'll plead it all the way to the Supreme Court pro se.
That would be an interesting thing to do, that's for sure.
Stay angry, everybody. It's a pretty easy feat in the city of Fall River.
That's true, it is. And it looks like you're going to have a good weekend, people, so enjoy it. You're only going to have rain today, and that should be done shortly. So have a great weekend, stay angry, and look to the sun.
Power to the people.
That's it.
The majority of the people.